Hey, everybody.
Hey Barry, how are you?
Doing great.
Well, want to dive into your new look offensive line. I know you returned a couple guys, but you've been building up this offensive line. You had some key pieces, three transfers here, Barry. What have you thought of it so far? What do you think of the group as a whole going into the spring?
Well, obviously, we'll have a better feel and understanding of that after probably this first week. But just based on the off-season work, the intentionality of those guys in particular, and to be honest with you, all the guys that we brought in, I think on both sides of the ball. I've got a chance, as one of the things during off-season, during mat drills or winter conditioning, you get a chance to be around the whole team and see, all the new faces and the returners. And I've just been super impressed with all the guys that we brought in with their work ethic and the way they've attacked the offseason. And so obviously really excited in particular to get to see those new faces up front, take that offseason work and put it in a huddle and in a stance and a run scheme and a pass protection scheme. But I think those guys are more than ready to go this week.
Obviously, you got some pass catchers going to the next level, Barry, and they seem to be impressing people. How important is the development of the guys you got coming back, Malik, Ash, and a lot of those receivers, Cole coming in? How important is development in this spring for those guys around Luke?
Well, listen, this spring is super important for every single player that we have on our team, whether it's a player that's started 2 years, 3 years, 5 games, no games. But to your point, you're exactly right about that particular position. We lost some real production there, but I think that if you just look at across our team, I feel really good about the depth that we've developed there, in recruiting and acquisitions, and we've got some guys that kind of got their feet wet last year. Malik got his feet wet. Ashton emerged and had some really nice plays that he made for us. Canari's been in the game, and Hank's been in the game, and but when you peel it all back, Pat obviously is the one guy that we've got that's probably a little bit more of the known commodity. And what we need Pat to be at his best, and we need those young guys to take advantage of every day, and not just the practice days. The non-practice days are just as critical as the practice days are for us in our development. And obviously excited with Justin, with Coach Stepp joining us, and the way that he views things, and the way he's going to coach and teach will be different than what we had before. That doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's just going to be different, and it'll bring a unique perspective, I think, to those guys and their development. So I'm excited to get on the field with those guys and see what they've learned from the offseason.
Thanks, Barry.
Yes, sir.
Very specifically, what does Luke have to get accomplished and get done in the spring that will make you feel better rolling into the fall?
Well, I mean, I think to pick up where he left off, because I think he was playing really well for us when after the Minnesota game. Obviously, we've talked at nauseam about all that and how that developed. And I think the biggest thing that we're challenging him with is just urgency. And and that's in the passing game and the decision making. We got to get rid of the ball a little bit quicker. We got to be more decisive and throw people open. I think he's incredibly gifted. I think he's got a lot of tools, and when he cuts it loose, he's a really good quarterback. And so I think urgency and consistency are two big things that we're talking to him about. Every one of our players on both sides of the ball have things that we're focusing on. Really two big things that we're focusing on. So we could go down the line and talk about those from each player, but for Luke in particular, to pick up where he left off, be more decisive in his decision making, because when he pulls the pin on things, he's really talented and he's a really accurate passer.
And then specifically, just because I know you want depth in that room, this would seem like a big spring for Donovan Leary, and to kind of prove to you guys that he can be counted upon it if and when that situation were to come, in a similar way to the way John handled last year as well for you guys.
Yeah, it's a really big spring for Donovan and the other quarterbacks that are in the room, and obviously for Luke. And I mean, I'm not trying to push back on the questions, but it's a huge spring for our whole team. And offensively, we've got to take advantage of these days. But with Donovan in particular, I think Matt, you're right on. He's got to. Obviously we went into the season last year with Donovan kind of being like 2B or three, and John kind of had emerged. Really, his experience was a separator for him during fall camp and spring of last year for him and Donovan, because Donovan had certainly some really good days and some really good moments. We're very confident in who Donovan is and what he is as a player, and I think this is his time to step into these huddles and take command of it. He's got a very good feel of the offense, and I'm looking forward to seeing him take that feel and that knowledge that he's gained and combining that with his physical skills and turn into a quarterback that can go win us football games.
Thanks, Barry.
You bet.
Hey Barry, what is it about Justin Stepp and the way that he goes about this that made him a fit for you guys offensively? And is there any teaching thing in particular of his that you really were drawn towards just in the time that you've known him?
Well, I think, a couple things about that. The type of person he is. When you work with somebody, it's one of the things. I spent 2 years working with Justin and on a daily basis. And so when you work with somebody, that's a whole different animal than when you know somebody that knows the guy, right? So when you go to interview or hire people, you get a little small glimpse of that when you get in the interview process with them, but you don't see the long-term daily interactions of somebody like you can when you work with them. So that there was no substitute that for me and for Coach Bielema when we started talking about candidates, as he knew that I'd been with Justin for 2 years and knew I liked him and respected him, but the type of person he is, the type of father he is, the type of husband he is. And then I was just super impressed with, I heard him say this to Coach when he came on his interview. He said, I love coach. My passion is coaching the receivers and everything that goes along with that. And I think that was a real strong statement because he's just really passionate about the details of the position, right? The drill work, the details, the fundamentals that's required to play the position. And then the relational aspect of it is something I think that Justin's got a gift for, that he's just able to dive deep into the players' lives, to their families' lives, whether he recruited them or didn't recruit them. I think he's got an incredible gift for that. And so those things made him really a great fit for what we were looking for in that wide receiver room.
Then obviously you guys are losing Tip at tight end, and Cole seems like a big addition for you. But how do you feel like that room is starting to take shape to maybe give you guys that element offensively?
Well, I think honestly that's one of the rooms that I think has got a lot to prove this spring. I think there's a lot of guys in that room that have a lot to prove, and they're going to be ample opportunity, obviously, for repetitions and the way that we structure practice for those guys to show us what they've got. I've liked the way that the offseason has gone, as far as the way they've worked and their bodies have developed and the way they move in the offseason. But they've got to, it's time for us to take that to the football field now and to really get a better feel of like what a healthy Griffin Moore looks like, what Cole Russ looks like on a daily basis. Nate Ginn, the off season that he's had has been impressive. And, obviously when you start calling them by name, you can certainly leave somebody, so I'm going to be careful not to keep going down that line. But for a lot of the guys that we have, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity for, Owen Anderson to show us how he's developed. And so we're excited about that. And I think they are too.
Then we'll obviously ask Brad about the health at running back, but just for you, there's so many injuries last season. We've talked about it so much, Barry, but in spring, how do you kind of work through, who's available and kind of how to get those guys, hitting that gas with the big role in front of them?
Well, yeah, I think that's always a challenge, and we kind of dealt with that all year last year. And I think Thad did a great job of managing that. Obviously, Coach oversaw that and how we managed that. It'll be a similar continuation of that to some degree this spring. But we've got some healthy guys that have a lot to prove as well, and we're excited to see them go cut it loose. And it's physical. It's a requirement of 15 practices. We take pride in being a physical team, and that's how we're going to practice. We got to get better at running the football. That's a big emphasis for us this spring. And so there's certainly going to be a lot of workload for those guys that are available. And for the ones that aren't available, their development is just as critical. And we're going to continue to put steam on that and making sure those guys that all positions, whether they're available to fully go through spring or it's partial availability, is their development mentally is just as important as in physically. And that's a big focus for us.